This thing is really slow. What does it say? I don't know what it's talking about. They're saying this thing was deleted and it wasn't.
No, I'm seeing it where it's saying we're live.
Yeah, it's saying I see that too. So I don't know why it's saying or doing that. So hey everybody, welcome back to Unplugged Grief Ministries. I'm glad that you are here on this lovely Friday evening, and I am delighted to welcome back the wonderful Professor Dave Roberts. He teaches at his local community college, and he's also, correct me if I'm wrong, he's also a licensed mental health counselor.
Well, I'm a
Therapist.
licensed master social worker.
You're a social worker.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, which still does that great, wonderful work of helping people to learn how to help each other, and either whether in a hospital or a mental health facility or hospice, whatever, you're doing what you have to do to help people. And I was back in the days when I was selling as a licensed insurance agent, I found myself spending more time helping people with whatever they needed than I was selling
Hmm.
life insurance. I just could not sell to them when I saw they had a greater need someplace else.
Hmm.
And I said, I should have finished college. I should have finished as a social worker and a teacher. And that didn't happen. But that's the thing that's inside of me. God still implemented that in me, even if I don't have the piece of paper. So, but Dave is going to spend the next 30 to 45 minutes teaching us something that will help encourage us, uplift us, and help us to learn things that we, even as me, I may be a grief and mental health um, coach, but I tell you what, I still have so much to learn, not only about me, but I hope what he shares today will also help you and uplift you and encourage you and teach you something new. Life is a school, so we're always going to learn something new. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing these StreamYards, these podcasts, because the idea is for all of us to learn. And that's also the idea of my ministries, is to teach so that everybody can find that path that will help them to better themselves. Like what I do is to help better myself. I know I'm not perfect. I know I have a long ways to go. But sometimes um, God puts certain people in our lives and on our paths to help us, to encourage us, to uplift us, because that's what we need on a daily basis. So I'm glad that Dave, you are back. I think this is the third time I have you back, and I'm always getting encouraged to have Dave come back because one of the he's such a humble person, and he's so good at being able to help explain things and help us uplift us. Um, I've seen him in other podcasts with Tony, and he's very a humble man, but yet he knows from even his own life experience how he can teach us and how it helped him, how it helped him. So Dave, I'm going to give you the floor. Like I said earlier, I'm going to mute myself because that's the way I discipline myself, so I don't rudely interrupt you. But if you do say, if anybody has any questions on, then I'm going to probably throw a lot of questions at you,
That's
or
fine.
make some remarks. So
Hey, D,
one
as
of
a
the things.
teacher,
Go ahead.
no, I said as a teacher, I'm used to fielding all kinds of questions. So, go for it.
Um,
I like questions.
true, that's true. That's true. One of the things I was going to bring up is that I am going to do my best to keep on with my podcast in the next few months. I don't know if you heard, Dave, but I was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. So there will be times that I won't be able to be on because I'm going to have radiation treatment. I
Mhm.
might have surgery. Fortunately, I'm at stage 0. That's a good
Good.
sign. That is at the very beginning. So they want to try to get it before it grows. So, and that makes it easier that, to make life a little bit, make my life last a little bit longer, hopefully. So,
Well,
um,
hopefully, because I think you got a lot of great work left to do, and you and your family are going to be in my thoughts throughout all of this. So,
yeah, I'm just thankful in a lot of ways that God has blessed me the last 2 times with my colon cancer, that He's healed me with that. So, with this at the very beginning stage, even a lot of my relatives are really encouraged that it's the very beginning stage and that I can aggressively get to it. So, I'm going to do my best to keep on with my podcast. But if you guys don't see me on that often, just know that maybe that was the day that I just didn't feel good enough to get on camera. And I don't always look good. See? And tonight, I'll tell you, I slept in today. I desperately need a new mattress. But I actually slept in today and I lost track of time. And by the time I saw what time it was like 4:30. Like, where did the day go? So today's one of those days that you just. So, Dave, I'm going to mute myself, zip my lips, and listen to you. I hope everybody is blessed and encouraged and learn what Dave shares with us this evening.
thank you, Dee, and hi everyone. My name is Dave Roberts, and I'll give you just a little bit of background in terms of how I got involved in the field of death and dying, or actually how the field of death and dying found me. Because as I tell individuals, either whether it be my students or anybody else who knows of my story, most of us did not get into the field of death, dying, and bereavement by professional choice. Um, we got in because of personal tragedy and personal circumstances. So I am 68 years old. I spent 27 years of my life working as an addictions professional for the state of New York and a clinical supervisor. I retired in July of 2012. And prior to my retirement, I had been an adjunct professor of psychology at Utica University in Utica, New York, where I've taught for over 20 years. I currently teach a Care of the Human Spirit course, a Death, Dying, and Bereavement course, and Impact of Addiction on Children and Families. And I also teach a general psychology course at the Pratt Bunson School of Art. So, and even inherent in my job duties, there's a lot of teaching with in-service training and a lot of different things. And I believe that everything I have done in my past has prepared me for what I do in the present. And my life took a very normal trajectory, very predictable trajectory. I got married when I was 28 years old, and I've been married to 41 years to my wife Sherry. We've we were blessed with 3 children. I got 2 sons, Dan and Matthew, and one daughter, Janine, who is the motivation and the inspiration for me getting her her life and her transition, as I call it, her life and transition, and or how you might see transition as death or passing on, um, has been the inspiration for me to get involved with the grief world. In September of 2001, and I'm fast forwarding here, um, my daughter Janine came home with her boyfriend and informed me that she was pregnant. And when I heard the news, I didn't get angry because I liked her boyfriend. I knew he was responsible, and I knew that they had a plan to take care of their child. She delivered a beautiful baby girl by the name of Brianna Lee on May 2nd, 2002. Now, in between, early in her pregnancy, she injured her foot. It was her right foot. And her right foot became more progressively swollen. And they had tried traditional treatments for a swollen foot. They tried elevation, they tried a walking boot. Nothing seemed to work. In April of 2002, they wanted to do an MRI of her foot, and she said, no, not until after my child was born. So shortly after Brianna was born, they did an MRI, found an undefined 8 centimeter mass at the bottom of her foot, did a biopsy, and found that it was highly suggestive for cancer. On May 26th, and I remember these dates very, very specifically, she was officially diagnosed with the velar rhabdomyosarcoma, which is a rare connective muscle tissue cancer. A week later, I think it was June 1st or 2nd, we went to the Dana-Farber Institute in Boston, in Research Hospital. They are one of the best research hospitals and treatment centers in the world for pediatric sarcomas. They informed us in about a 5-minute consult that Janine had a stage 4 tumor, which meant that there was distant metastasis in all parts of her body, including her bone marrow and lymph nodes. And they said to us that there was no cure for cancer. The only hope that we had was aggressive chemotherapy to put her cancer into remission until they could find a cure. So basically, what I heard, what my daughter heard, was that she was going to die. Now, and that's what I had heard. Unless there was short of a miracle, this was going to be the end result. Now, a week before she was diagnosed on May 19th, I had just finished the requirements for my master's degree in social work. So you take a look at everything that happened to me between May and June 1st. Within a month, I was a grandfather for the first time. I celebrated getting my master's degree in social work. And then all of a sudden, I found myself thrown into a life or death battle with my child. So you want to talk about the ups and downs of life. That month is a microcosm or of the macrocosm that I think happens all the time. There's always going to be ups and downs in our lives, regardless of the challenge. She did 6 aggressive rounds of treatment of chemotherapy. Her chemotherapy was only 80% remission after all of the treatment. And there were times I was wondering what was worse, the cancer or the chemo, because the side effects that she experienced were really severe. Her cancer was only 20% in remission. And with cancer, unless it's 100% in remission, anything short of that, to me, isn't acceptable. What had happened is that she wanted to spend Christmas with her family. So she didn't do any treatment. I believe it was after end of October, maybe early November. Her cancer returned again and metastasized with a vengeance after the first of the year in 2003. We got a prognosis of 1 to 3 months. In February of 2003, I believe it was February 19th, she did not want to do any further treatment. Hospice services were brought in, and Janine transitioned at home on March 1st, 2003, at the age of 18, at 12:30 in the morning. Also, to backtrack, after Janine got sick, her significant other, Brianna, their cat moved in with me, my 2 sons, my wife, and our 2 cats. So the joke around our neighborhood was how many animals, how many humans could you get in just a one level ranch, and we somehow made it work. And her significant other and Brianna stayed with us for 4 years following Janine's transition. But but after they moved, we got to see, he made sure that Brianna was a regular part of our lives. We saw her regularly. Now Brianna is 21 years old and has a granddaughter of, has a daughter of her own. And so I am now a great grandfather. So I became a grandfather at 47 and a great grandfather at 65. Now, prior to that, I was no stranger to grief. I mean, I had danced with grief since I was 5 years old, from my father leaving and letting my mother raise me as an only child, to experiencing the death of numerous friends, my maternal grandmother, my mother, and my maternal aunt who raised me. Um, so I have danced with grief all my life, but the death of my daughter transported me to a world that was foreign, that was terrifying, and that I didn't know how I was going to negotiate. The 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 task that I had was determining, and I'm paraphrasing from one of my favorite musicians and writers, the late great Neil Peart, the drummer for Rush, who said after his catastrophic losses, I needed to learn um, I needed to determine the type of person I wanted to be and the type of world I wanted to live in. And I think I reversed that, but that was the message. And that's what I needed to do. And it was a very arduous journey because all the training I had in the world, my background, my education, my experience working with clients in tragedy didn't prepare me for bearing a child. And as a parent, it's unnatural to bury your child. It's unnatural to see that. And but with support, with the love and support of my students at Utica University and that whole community, I was able to gradually move from the darkness into the light. Um, that because they gave me purpose and gave me something to shoot for, something to strive for. Um, but though I was gradually moving through my grief, there was still an element of sadness for me. And there's an element of sadness, I think, that we will experience for the remainder of our lives when we're grieving the loss of a loved one, except we know how to manage the sadness better as we grow in time, and we know how to integrate that sadness. So we accept it as part of our human experience as we move through our grief. But 7 years after the transition of my daughter in 2010, through um, a lot of serendipity, and events that would probably take me another hour to really set up for you, I met a dynamic individual by the name of Patty Farino, who was an interfaith minister in Long Island. Um, we met initially through a 45-minute phone call because I was helping her register for an online conference because she had everything set up for that conference. She clicked submit, and her computer blacked out. And we looked at it as kind of God's or the universe or divine's intervention's way of, and my daughter's way of getting us together. We talked for 45 minutes. We met at a conference that I was organizing, and she invited me to come down to Long Island anytime I had wanted to. And there was an event that was coming up in November of 2010 that she was involved with in her capacity working for Angela's House, which is an organization that and the Angel of Hope, which is an initiative that supports parents who've experienced the death of a child. And I went down there. She invited me to Long Island. She invited me to stay with her and her husband, and I did. And after the conference, which was after the workshop, which was titled "Embrace the Power of Change," I was in Patty's sacred space in her living room, and there was thus that I underwent a spiritually transformative experience that she guided that helped me find peace with my daughter Janine's transition, and that told me that instilled in me the strong belief that our consciousness survives after death and that we can connect with our loved ones at any time. So, um, And it eventually led to 10 years or more of marathon conversations about how the world of psychology and spirituality can come together to help individuals transcend challenge. And until all this happened with Patty, I was very science based, very rational based. Now I'm still very science based, but I've expanded my belief systems to include spiritual practices, which is of one teaching that I can share to everybody is that if we that forces us to take a look at our existing belief system, our attitudes, our beliefs, our perspectives, our our priorities, and decide what needs to be changed, what needs to be modified, what needs to stay. But we don't have to embrace new belief systems in place of our existing belief systems. Patty always taught me it's always in addition to. So one of the first teachings that I can give you is the expansion of beliefs is just that. It's not at the expense of your core beliefs, it's an addition to. Had I had not committed to belief expansion with Patty's guidance and looked at spiritual or holistic or integrative health practices that she exposed me to, I would not be sitting here talking with you. Because had I looked at the world the same way after my daughter's death as I did prior or daughter's transition, I would not have moved through my grief. Eventually, and I kept telling her, I said, Pat, we ought to write a book. We ought to write a book because people need to know what you did for me. People need to know that getting through catastrophic loss is possible through a through embracing a variety of different perspectives, and that our loved one's consciousness does survive in death, does survive after death. So in 2020, during the pandemic, we used Google Docs and we collaborated on a book. And on March 1st, 2021, and we picked March 1st because that was the date of my daughter's transition, we published a book called When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister, which talks about in detail about the spiritually transformative experience she facilitated, the importance of merging psychology and spirituality together to expand our belief systems to transcend challenge, the importance of critical thinking and in terms of also doing that as well, and also expanding our belief system as well. And it's a three-part book that's for present and future generations. Um, and if you're interested in finding out more about the book, you can go on Amazon. It's available in Kindle format and paperback format. Um, and I mean, so that is my story now. Up until this point, my story continues to evolve. One of the things I have learned is that the people who have been brought into my path have been put there for a reason and at the time that they were supposed to be there. Patty came into my life when she was supposed to come into my life, and other individuals prior to that, and my students came into my life when they were supposed to each help me take one more step through that very circular journey of grief. And eventually when I found Patty, she was the person that allowed me to see a different perspective, allowed me to transform the relationship with my daughter, to integrate the best parts of her into the best parts of me so that I could move forward in my grief. And another teaching that I can pass on to you about grief is that grief integration means that we look at, for me, it meant that I took a look at my daughter's positive characteristics and said, how can I make them a part of me? And moving forward, how could I utilize the essence of her with the personality that I have and the qualities that I have to move forward, to lead a purpose-driven life, to lead a life full of gratitude and service to others who are experiencing catastrophic loss. So that is another teaching. And also support can come in a variety of different forms. A lot of times we we lament the people who aren't in our lives and we forget the people who are do come into our lives. And I call them transient angels. And I can give you one example. Right after my daughter Janine transitioned, there was about a week after she had transitioned. I was sitting in one of the offices at what was then Utica College and is now Utica University, asking myself, how the hell am I going to get through a 3-hour class tonight? I didn't have the energy to get through a 3-minute class. And then at that time, the chair of the psychology department came up to me and said, I'm very sorry for your daughter's loss. And the fact that he had remembered and took the time in the evening to come by and acknowledge that with me meant the world to me, and it got me through that. So sometimes it's the people that are right in front of us that may be in our lives for just a moment in time that can bring us the most hope. And I call them transient angels. So look for the transient angels in your life, in addition to the individuals who are going to be there to support you. Also, what I found is finding a good support network, a good support group um, with individuals, with other parents who understood what losing a child was like was also very helpful to me. Um, and the other thing is that the person that I am now isn't the person that I was when I was 47. And I'm okay with that. Um, I'm okay with that because I'm not expected to be the person I was when I was 47. If that was the case, there wouldn't be any growth, there wouldn't be any change. And we are going to continue to grow, we are going to continue to evolve, whether it's as a result of challenge or not. But the thing is that one of the things I've learned is that life isn't always fair. The quality of our life isn't determined about how fair or unfair we think the universe has treated us, but the quality of our life is determined by how well we transcend challenge. And there are
Mhm.
a lot of tools that you can avail yourself of to do that. There are a lot of great workshops or a lot of great grief coaches. Find somebody who you align with, who can who can help you come to a perspective based on what you believe, and also determine what do you believe about death, about life, and where do you want to go from there. And don't let anybody try to convince you that you have to believe any other way. You don't. Everybody has a different belief system, and we need to honor that, respect it, and understand that there's no one right or wrong way to grieve. The other piece of that is you need to be empowered as grievers to determine which perspectives are going to align with your current belief system. There's not
Yes.
one right or wrong path to take from going from the raw pain of grief to acceptance of the fact that I can lead a purpose driven life filled with gratitude without the physical presence of our loved ones. There's not any one path to take. There's a variety of different paths. Take the path that's comfortable for you, and don't compare who's doing grief better than you or not, but try to understand how other people grieve, because if you put yourself in a position where you're listening and understanding, you may pick up something that you can integrate in your own belief system that's going to help you move forward even with greater clarity. So I think, Dee, that's off the top of my head, those are a few things that I can pass on to your audience. um, so if you got questions or the audience has questions, I'm ready.
Dave, it was something that you brought up because this is one of the reasons why I do try to teach a class on how to become an effective comforter. Because I remember you brought out a story how a week after your daughter's death, how a colleague came up to you to check on you and to, express, acknowledge that he understood and heard about your loss. And that's what I try to teach people is if you're going to become an effective comforter, don't do it just for the one day of the funeral. It's a matter of doing it weeks, months, and maybe even years. And I know a lot of
Okay.
people become so uncomfortable with our grief that they choose to hide, run away and hide, than to be that effective comforter. And I think they're uncomfortable because they have not ever been taught how to become that effective comforter. It's like society teaches you just if you're not comfortable, just keep going,
Yeah.
you know. But that's not the way because, like you said, they become these angels to us. I remember one time, I don't remember how long after Timothy passed away, but I remember I was in church and I remember we were singing a hymn, and for some reason that song hit me really hard. It just triggered a memory of Timothy. And I remember standing there looking like I'm singing, but I was crying. And out of the blue, all of a sudden, OJ was standing right next to me. How he got there or when he got there, I have no clue. But he was right there and he put his arms around me. And this is before he even became a father. So, but he understood to be there. You know, he understood that how important it was to become that effective comforter, even if he was not. I think he might have been taught it. Either that, he taught himself. Do you know what I'm saying? But he was my angel, and he didn't do it just once. I've had other people also do it, come up to me, because that does happen when you have a wonderful relationship with God, and you're in church and you're singing, or the pastor's preaching something. He may trigger a thought or a memory, you know, and that's when you're there for to be that effective comforter.
Listen, I'm sorry, but this is Janine's daughter.
Your granddaughter.
That's my granddaughter. Yeah, Janine's daughter. This is Dee. You want to say hi to her?
Sure.
Hey.
Hi.
She
I've
came.
heard so much about you.
Yeah,
and it's good. It's good.
Hey, yeah, it's never bad stuff, honey.
That's not true.
Never bad stuff. But she likes to crash a podcast every now and then. She crashed one that I did. So.
Oh, good.
And good. She came over to help her grandmother with a dryer problem that she was having. Is it all set?
No, you're sending it back to Lowe's.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, so she decided she looks just like her mother too.
Yeah, I see that face feature.
Yeah,
it's within the face.
And you know the other part of this, and I'm going to tell this to your audience. Janine was only in Brianna's life for 10 months. And Brianna is every bit the spit and image personality of her mother. Now, you can explain that through genetics, or you can explain that through something that science can't explain.
Yes.
But she's got the best of both her father and her mother, but when her personality comes out, it's her mother. And
as I've heard, just within family, when somebody suddenly dies and all of a sudden there's a birth, it's like that transition right there. It's like that spirit moves, you know. And that's probably what it was, from your daughter's soul to your granddaughter's.
Yeah, she's quite the young lady.
Yeah, I'm sure she is.
She's quite the young lady.
She have a boyfriend? No. Did you say she also has a baby?
Yeah. She's got Tegan Marie. She gave her mother's middle name. And
good.
Tegan's just like Brianna. So the Roberts side of the family tradition passes on, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You could never deny that Tegan isn't your daughter. So, and we're live, honey. You know that, right?
This is great. Yes.
Yeah, we're live. I also tried to embarrass her mother quite a bit, so I got to embarrass her a little bit. But I love her. I can't. My love knows no bounds for this young lady.
Now, after your daughter died, did you raise your granddaughter?
No, I think they stayed here for 4 years, and basically when her dad went to work, my wife took over, but it was basically, I think I would say, a joint effort, wouldn't you say, between your dad and grandma?
Yeah, it was pretty equal.
And then they left 4 years after, but Janine had asked her boyfriend, or asked her father, Steve, who said, "Look, just stay here for 4 years until Brianna settled," and because they wanted to go, they were going to eventually, if Janine had lived, they wanted to live in Waterville, and Brianna was going to go to Waterville schools. he was a man of his word. He was a man of his word, and I always will remember that. And she was never out of our lives, and we were fortunate that we had that good relationship with him and the family. And now she's over here all the time. You know, she's over here, which is great, which means she isn't sick of me yet.
Listen,
Sometimes you are, huh? Yeah. So that's Janine's daughter. So it's a pleasure. I'm grateful to be able to introduce her to everybody.
I can tell she's not shy being in front of the camera.
No, she's not. She's not shy. She's shy when she's sleeping. That's the only time she doesn't talk.
that's right.
But anything else, it's like there's nothing shy about this young lady.
Mm,
Nothing
that's
shy.
wonderful.
Nothing shy about her. So this is Brianna.
The one we hear so much about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Good
that's
things.
me.
It's all good, honey.
I'm sure it is.
It's all good.
All
So
right, I gotta go.
I know you got to go. Goodbye,
Okay.
sweetie. I love you. Well, you can tell them. You can tell them you love me on the air.
You know.
You don't want to do
I
that?
don't need it documented. Thank you, though.
I love you, sweetie.
I love you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh, well, that was fun. A little. You never know who's going to drop in during any podcast anymore. But she's that side. So thanks for that, Dee. Thanks for for the indulging for the
Yeah, I know
indulge
how
the
much
audience a little bit.
I know how much you love your granddaughter, and you speak so much of her. So that's a wonderful trait to have. It's to always, because she reminds you so much of your own daughter. There's that attachment in a
Mhm.
way.
Yeah,
You know.
she as much and her mother, the thing is with the other thing is that sometimes we can present an idealized version of our children after they've transitioned. But Janine had her wilderness phase. She had her moments. Brianna has her moments like any young lady. But the bottom line is that you know you love them, and you love them for for the good moments and the bad moments, because the good moments outweigh the bad ones.
Yeah.
And she's her mother was a good person, and Brianna's just a good person too. She's just very much like her mom, and it's we're thankful that she's a part of our life. So
Yeah, it's wonderful because a lot of times we may not always see it, but it's even our children or grandchildren that also teaches us a lot about life as well. You know.
yep, it does. And she and one of the and I forgot to mention that one of the mantra of my podcast, the Teaching Journeys podcast, is that we're all students and teachers, so let's learn from each other. There isn't anything or anybody younger or older than that can't teach me. I learn from everybody and everything. I don't think anybody's too young to learn from me, and I'm not too old to learn
Right.
from anybody who's younger. We all are in service to each other to make us aware of how we can always attain the better versions of ourselves. And sometimes we point out those things that are hidden that we need to look at. So in that way, we're also in service to each other too. And that happens in life. It's happened to me in grief. So all of that, everybody and everything is in service to us. And that's another teaching I can leave everybody with, is that even the person who you see as the most offensive, even the most repulsive, they're they're there in our lives for a reason. They can teach us something about ourselves, even if the teaching is that you never want to be like that person. Their presence in and of itself was a gift because it reminds you of who you not want to be. And then
Yes.
once you recognize that, that person may no longer become a factor in your life, may no longer be as irritating once you realize what that person has had to teach you.
Yes. That's so true. I believe that too.
Yep.
So that's I let me see here. I do not see any comments. So um tell us about your podcast, because I know you have a
Uh,
podcast. I've seen some of your
some of the yeah.
some of your podcasts.
like anything in my life, Dee, this kind of opened, the universe kind of opened this up for me. Two of my students who I lovingly called pains in the butts, over the past year had bugged me, goes, Dave, you ought to do a podcast. You ought to do a podcast. Bring some of the teachings that you do in your death, dying, and bereavement class
Yes.
at a podcast. So I thought about it. I delayed for a variety of different reasons. Maybe the time wasn't right. There was just other things other things that categories of manifested that I had to take care of first. And then finally, it wasn't just my students mentioning it. Anybody that I talked with, first thing came out of their mouth, you ought to do a podcast. You ought to do a podcast. So I looked up to the sky. I said, God, the universe, creator, I don't need a ton of bricks to fall on my head. So, um, with the help of my son Dan, who has his own podcast, and he's a Buffalo Bills fan, so he has his own podcast about Buffalo Bills football. He helped me get set up. We released our first episode March 31st. It was me and Patty doing a podcast together, and I've been fortunate and blessed to have had a number of guests, a couple of you who you've referred to me, um, and others that have reached out or that I knew from previous alliances, and it's been a steady stream of recorded podcasts, um, that it'll look, and it's been taking off pretty well. The initial reviews we've gotten have been great, and I just want to have interesting conversations with people. I mean, whether it's about how their challenges, through grief or through other life altering circumstances, can teach us something about ourselves, or even if there's just basic life skills that they have that people who are used or experiencing challenge, or who just otherwise want to improve the way they relate to the world can use. Um, so that's what it's been about. And it's been fun because I've been having some great conversations. And I've learned that to do a podcast right, it's work, but I've never been shy from work. And so that's where I'm at with that. It's been a lot of fun, D.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Sometimes it's a little bit too expensive too.
Yeah, that's
It
the other.
depends where you go, but the reason why I used to do it on what's the name of that other crowd
Oh,
stage?
there's Buzzsprout. There's a variety of different
Anyway,
RSS.com.
yeah, I used to do it on the other one, but that took a little bit extra work to do. But here, the reason why I like this is because my destinations can be in a number of platforms.
Yep.
And although right now I'm only using three, um, I just count those three as a blessing to be able to share. Two of them on Facebook and one on YouTube.
Hmm.
It's just a blessing to be able to share those because no matter where you're at, somebody can just stop and listen because
Hmm.
that's all it takes is a few minutes that they can learn something from either you or I or whoever, and that may be the one thing that will encourage them,
Hmm. Hmm.
motivate them, uplift them,
Yep.
you know. So, and that's and and one of the things I constantly teach people is to be kind. I did a job interview recently, and they gave me this question, and I said, because sometimes we get people that are screaming and yelling at them, and the only way to respond is to be kind to them,
Hmm.
kind and courtesy, and they couldn't do it because so
Yeah, there's you always make the choice that is driven by love and kindness, and it brings peace. You
yeah,
always do. It doesn't it doesn't take much to show kindness to somebody. It could be just opening a door for somebody, smiling at somebody who may be having a bad day because you don't know what kind of a day they're having. They may be contemplating suicide. And I said this last night when I was talking to somebody, just a simple smile or acknowledgement or asking them how their day is going, communicating that they matter. may be just enough to delay their decision today. Because I never know the path a person is walking. So I kind of figure
Right.
I never know what they're dealing with. So it doesn't hurt me to be kind or show them a smile. It's not gonna, it's gonna take less effort than that than to me to be angry and to just be bitter. I would I would rather, if I'm going to expend a lot of energy, I'd rather expend it where I'm putting positive vibes out in the world.
Mm.
So
Learn something new every day.
you got it. That's what it's about. So always we're works in progress. Always works in progress.
Always. No matter how old or how young, it's always going to be that way.
You got it.
You know.
You
But
got it.
that's what improves our lives. That's what makes us to be a better person for others as well.
That's
You
right.
know.
Yep.
And it's also that mindset. It's the changing of that mindset. And I think, in a sense, that's what helped me to find that peace that I needed when I realized I had to let go of the Global Grief Network. I just had to say, you know what? It's not worth it. Just walk away. As much as you would love to have revenge, as much as you would love, it's over. You don't need to do it. Have some peace. Move on. There's better things to do than to worry about that. And I thank God that He helped me with that change in that mindset to give me that peace that I really needed. You know, and once I realized I let it go, I did find that peace.
Mhm.
It was very hard, but I figured, God's gonna put me in a different position that may be even greater and better. So
Mhm.
I just have to wait because I know He has something planned. I just have to be patient and wait, and know that He has something better for me. That's, he allows some things happen in our lives. We
Mhm.
can't we can't foresee it, you know, but He
Mhm.
sees it. So it might have been a blessing in disguise because when suddenly, there's breast cancer coming up, and He just knew maybe it's just time, you know, it's time just to walk away, not to be mean, not to be rude or disrespectful, but just this is the time just to walk away and let God, let God do what He needs to do with your life and everybody else's lives. I mean, look what happened with Jenny. She just became engaged. Woo! And she's one of my favorite grief teachers, with Allison and a few others. It's so nice to, know that God's working in wonderful ways for our other grief and mental health coaches. And
Mhm.
that's that's when kindness walks in. That's when love comes in. That's when that peace comes in. That we can still continue to encourage each other, to uplift each other, and walk away if you have to. Like you said in the beginning, some people are just not meant to be in your life. You know, some people are there just as a temporary thing, and then they go move on. And
Yeah.
I had a very hard time with that several years ago, letting that go. But once I did, although I miss a lot of people,
Mhm.
friends from church and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, grief changes the landscape of everything. It changes our relationships. It changes our support group because some people cannot deal with their grief and they just slip into the background. And the people that you never thought were going to step up, and that becomes your support group. The grief loss changes everything. Loss changes the relationship within ourselves. It changes the relationships that we have with others. It changes the quality and also the quantity of those relationships. And I can tell you the relationships that I had prior to Janine's transition are not the same that I have now. There are people
yes,
there are people that have fallen out of the wayside, including family. Some of extended family, and that's okay. I'm at peace with that because the people that are in my life now are the ones that are supposed to be there, and
yes,
I express a gratitude for them and feel blessed because they're there.
And you know, I had thought some of my relatives would have by now gotten used to the idea of what kind of grief I'm going through.
Hmm.
And I was shocked that, like, my one sister keeps saying, "You need to move on. You need to let go. Why do you always talk about Timothy?" And I said, "You know what, Donna? You will never understand it until you lose a child, and
Yep.
that would change your world. So don't criticize or judge me because I'm still grieving for my son, and I will always grieve for my son. I will always talk about him. I just keep his memory alive, just like I
Hmm.
keep our mother's memory alive. Tomorrow is my mother's angel anniversary, and I'm gonna go to Dairy Queen and have her pineapple milkshake, like I
Right.
do on her birthday. So it's just,
Yep.
hey, when you love somebody as much as we love our relatives, you keep their memory alive. Like, yes, you move on with your life, or you move forward, I should say. You
Yep.
may move forward, but all because you move forward in your life doesn't mean you put them in a cubby hole in a closet and then and don't and then don't keep their memory alive. You
Hmm.
know, I
Hmm.
now, as a parent, I only had one child, so I didn't have to worry about his name. But now Lizzie, my dog, sometimes I accidentally call her Timothy, and I'll
Hmm.
catch myself because I was meaning to say Lizzie, but I'm like you, have a bunch of kids and you can't remember all their names or who their names are. I'm still experiencing that, even if I had only one child. And I don't know why that happens. Calling
Well,
my dog Timothy, and I'm like, oh, Lizzie.
well, yeah, I mean, because they're never that far from our lips and our thoughts. And, just sometimes I think that's another way that they tell us that they're around. Because there's sometimes like with Brianna, she's so much like her mother, I'll slip and I'll call her by her mother's name.
Yeah,
Um,
see,
and it's just what happens, I think, is part of that. Then I look and I start smiling because it's another way that, I remember my daughter is through the actions of my granddaughter. So,
exactly, exactly. Well, Dave, I want to thank you so much for being part of this. And I want to thank everybody for being part of the Unplugged Grief Ministries podcast. And you can visit us and see or replay this on my Facebook on Unplugged Grief Coaching and Consultants, and on YouTube, Unplugged Grief Ministries. And I think I have it in another group, and I can't remember the name of it now. I used to have it on a lot of my groups, but unfortunately, because some hacker hacked into my account and changed my email, my phone number, my password, so I can't get into any of my groups that from my other account, and it drives me nuts because I can't see what's going on or how many members of people have been trying to join because I'm not there to approve it, and I miss my muscular dystrophy community, um, especially the ones that I have. I usually check on with them, and it just that's part of one of my grief right now, Dave, because it's not just because of my health, is that those Facebook groups that I created to help my muscular dystrophy community, friends and family, and I can't get in there to be with them. And even if right now I try to join it, even with this name, I can't get in it because I have to prove myself. And because I can't get in it, I can't prove this new name.
hmm.
So that's what happens when you're with a private group.
Yep.
So it's sad because I miss them, but most of them already know what my situation is. So um, I that was another thing I had to be at peace at, losing that group, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna wait, and then I'm gonna go back to Facebook because maybe I'm so desperate to get this account back that I'm not seeing seeing things. And I feel like Facebook will give you all these suggestions and they don't work, but then they still don't. You know, I know Tony did it, a couple of people did it, and they came back and they said there was nothing wrong with the account. You're not going to see it on the board. You're going to see it in the messengers. That's where the issue is, because they're trying to scam people. Unfortunately, I warned a lot of them ahead of time. So, but I really I look forward to the day when I can get back. But right now, I'm focusing on other things and hoping and hoping that God just continues to find a way to bless this ministry as He is with yours and many others. You know, there's more than one way to bless people and help people. So it's something we're all learning.
Yep.
I'm thankful that you are here with us tonight, and I'm going to try and rebook you again, most likely after the holidays.
That's
So,
I'm not too hard to find, so you know where to
no,
get me.
I know. Yeah, I see you a lot on the Tony's podcast, you know, and there's ones that he has on the Saturday evenings. And those are the ones I also miss being part of it, and or just being part of the audience. I really do miss those because I learned so much from those podcasts, and I miss learning from that, you know. So, okay, folks, thank you. You can see us at unpluggedgrief.org. Again, I'm on YouTube, Unplugged Grief Ministries, and also on Facebook. You can email us at any time at unpluggedgrief@gmail.com. And Dave, how can they reach you if they want to contact you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Instagram. If they want to email me, it's bootsyandangel@gmail.com. My website is I have two. One that's dedicated to mine and Patty's book, psychologyprofessorandminister.com, and my personal website is bootsyandangel.com. So there's a variety of different ways to get in touch with me. So I'm not that hard to find.
And tell us again the name of your podcast.
Name of the podcast is the Teaching Journeys Podcast.
Yes.
It's on Apple, Spotify, and other well-known podcast platforms. So it's free to subscribe. It's not a paid subscription. People can follow it. They can get notifications when we drop new episodes, and so it'd be great that you follow the Teaching Journeys podcast, you follow these podcasts, and any of other good grief coaches that have podcasts, because you'll get something out of every one of them. So
yes, we're learning so much from each other and encouraging each other. That's one of the things that the 7-letter word for encouragement is comfort. So I want to remind people that when you're comforting someone, you're encouraging them.
You got
and
it.
when you're encouraging someone, you're also comforting them. So that's so cool how those two, connect. So it's that kind of motivation. Well, Dave, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to go make my spaghetti and go watch my Jonah Hospital. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend and have fun in teaching. I guess now you're going into October, so the semester is going to go by fast, because I noticed time is going by extremely fast.
It sure is. Sure is.
So I look forward to seeing you again and hearing and watching your podcast. And God bless you and your ministry and the things that you do to help people, including your students.
Yes, God bless you. God bless you too, and your ministry too, Dee.
So thank you, everybody, for being part of this tonight. And next week, we're going to have Betsy here. However, I might have to change the time, and there's a reason for that, but I can't say that right now. But if you can't see it on live, you will see the recordings of it at least. And that's always still good, So I hope everybody has a wonderful week and enjoy this weather. and right now it's like in the 70s here. Woohoo!
Mhm.
The weather yesterday, Dave, was unexpectedly very breezy and cool. Because I'm sure you might have, we've been having very hot days, in the 90s and all. But yesterday, John and I ended up in our shorts because we thought it was going to be a hot day. It was miserably cool, but
Mhm.
nice. But then when we go in to go eat at Burger King, because he likes to go inside, it was freezing. It was so cold that if you had ice cream, it wouldn't melt. So I said to John, God is preparing us for our winter days because of the way this climate changes. Oh my goodness. We went from being extremely hot. Where was it? I just saw somebody post something and they had snow yesterday. Snow already. And I'm like, oh, I need to move further south. I do not want to see snow. Even though with me here in this part of Florida, I'm in the northern part of Florida. It gets cold here, but it's nice and cool, and then it warms up. So,
Yep.
thank you, Dave, and everybody, for listening to
I-
my babbling. As John was saying, you just babble too much. Sometimes we lonely people have to just talk it out. Tell your wife hi, and
Thank-
have a wonderful weekend.
you too, Dee, and thanks for having me on the podcast.
Okay, we'll get back with you and see about rebooking you for after the holidays, and come back and teach us something new.
I can do that.
You know, I like a lot of your presentations, and so
I
it's
can do
nice
that.
to have good friends here and teaching and sharing because that's how we learn.
Always glad to help, and always glad to do that. So
Well, I'm so glad I got to meet you, not in person yet, but I'm so glad I got to meet you and have you part of this. It's a blessing to have you around. So
thank you, Dee.
good night, good night,
Good night.
good night, everybody.
Good night.
Don't you all party too much now. It is Friday night.
Yeah, it's
See
true.
ya. Bye bye.
Bye bye. All right.